Welcome back to Mind Over Masculinity. I'm your host Yusuf, and today we are talking about something that every small business owner and every ambitious employee runs into eventually: the leadership gap. Here's the classic headache: you either hire experienced leadership from outside, they come in with a shiny resume and a zero culture fit, or you promote your best people from within. They are loyal, hardworking, and trusted. But nobody ever actually taught them how to lead. So now you've got a great employee holding a leadership title and a nervous system that's screaming. My guest today is Rich Ashton. Rich spent 45 years acquiring, turning around, operating, and selling small businesses. Along the way, he got tired of choosing between outsiders who didn't fit and insiders who weren't prepared. So he built a training program inside his companies to develop leaders from within. It worked so well, he was able to retire and hand the keys to his leadership team. His book, Growing Your Own: Common Sense Advice for Developing Leaders in Small Business, is basically the playbook: practical, actionable, and built from the real world wins and scars. So, if you are building a business, building a team, or trying to build yourself into the kind of leader your life demands, this one's for you. So, with that, I welcome my guest, Rich Ashton, to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So, let's get into it. Rich, what's the biggest mistake small businesses owners make when they promote a top performer into their leadership?
Well, as you said in the introduction, um, most of the time you're promoting people who are great people, hardworking people, but they're not prepared to lead. And there's an awful lot of information out there on leadership in general. There's very little information on leading a small business. And believe me, the two are quite different.
Okay. Can you tell us the differences, please?
Oh, sure. In a small business, one of the things that's so fun about small business is that you're doing so many different things. You may at times be working on production, at times be working on creative, at times be working on future planning, even paying the bills. And in big business, you generally are a specialist. You do one of those things, but you don't do all of those things. And so learning how to balance those balls with some very simple principles is probably the biggest difference.
That's so true, because when you are running your own small business, you'll have to do everything. You are, let's just say, CEO on one day, owner on the one day, and the another day you are like peon or working like a sweeper in the same company. But when you are in a corporate or in a big leadership position, you are very specified. Let's just say for PR, let's just say for HR, and I think that limits the growth of that people as well.
Well, in small business, the real problem is the founder is probably very good at about three of the tasks he needs to do. So all of the time he or she is spending doing unproductive tasks for him and tasks that are outside his or her skill set is time that's it's not wasted, but it's certainly underproductive. And so if those tasks can be offloaded to skilled employees, then the amount of time that you can spend working on things you're really strong at is improved dramatically.
That's true. You were frustrated choosing between outside leaders who didn't fit culture and internal employees who weren't trained. What made you say that, nah, I'm building my own leaders this time?
Well, the problem with bringing in people from outside is they very rarely are accustomed to life in a small business. And we've already talked about how different life in a small business from a big business is. So if you bring in someone from outside, if they haven't come out of an entrepreneurial culture, they're going to find it disorganized, chaotic, and it's not going to fit with how they see business being done. In addition, your existing employees are going to wonder, hey, when it came time to promote somebody, how come you went outside? You didn't consider one of us. So it's a double-edged sword.
Hmm, that's true. So let's just say if someone's listening and they have already hired a culture mismatched leader, what's the way that they can fix it?
Very likely it's not fixable, at least in my experience. The reason that I developed the training course and wrote the book is because the safe way to do it and the safe way to protect your small business culture is to figure out a way to get highly motivated people already in that culture to perform at a leadership level. Fortunately, we were able to do that. I don't think I have ever been able to take somebody in a key role from outside the company and get them to be productive inside a small business in a short period of time.
Why do you think so that, let's just say if I am in your team for like past 5 years, I might not have the degree. I might not have, the qualifications to be the top leadership, to be in the top leadership position. But someone who does have all those requirements, why do you think I would be a better fit?
Well, number one, you share the values that we share in our company. That would be number one. But number two, just because you don't have a degree or you don't have a pedigree, we have found that that's not an impediment to becoming a leader. Your mindset that of a desire to grow and a willingness to understand what true leadership is, we find that those are the determining factors on your success. We began the program in our company with 8 people, and we found one who just he was a good guy, but he just wasn't capable of being a leader. We found another who just didn't want to work hard enough to become a leader. But the other 6, none of whom had college degrees and none of whom had true leadership experience or true leadership training, those 6 people are now running my companies.
Wow. So it really comes down to the mindset and motivation that a person has, not degree, no skills, maybe.
It does come down to mindset, and sometimes you have to dig and develop that mindset. Um, for instance, in I started our program by going around the room and saying, "So, where's your ceiling? What is holding you back? If you're a service technician by training, what holds you back from being a service manager or a true leader?" And as we talked about those things, it became very clear that, for instance, if you don't grow up around leadership, if leadership is not modeled in the home, then the likelihood that you're going to see yourself in a leadership role one day is somewhat diminished. And we were able, one of my favorite stories is a guy who was started at the very lowest rung of our company, came in with the idea that he would make enough money to be able to go back to Mexico at the end of the summer. And 19 years later, he's part of our leadership team. No one had ever talked to him about being a leader. No one had ever given him the basics. And we knew he was smart enough, but he didn't see himself in that role. Well, we got him to see himself in that role, and today he's very, very effective as a leader.
Wow. A lot of people think that leadership is authority, titles, controls, and decision making. But how do you define leadership, especially in a small business where you work very closely with the people?
Leadership, in my definition, is the ability to influence people in a particular direction. I think that is accomplished through accountability, proactivity, being truly connected to the employees, and being results oriented and demanding outcomes, not tolerating substandard performance. So I'd say those are probably the key ingredients.
Okay. And can you tell me one mindset shift that all our listeners can do right now so that they can become from a doer to a real leader?
I think I would probably concentrate on the accountability piece. And no one explains it better than the book Extreme Ownership by two Navy SEALs. And they start out in the first chapter talking about a combat situation where people were wounded, and the leader went before his commanding officer and said it was my fault. Now, he wasn't truly responsible out there in the field on that particular mission, but as the leader of the team, he said everything is my responsibility, and I'm going to make sure that this kind of situation never happens again. That accountability mindset is at the core of being an effective leader.
Mm, it makes sense. And let's just talk about your training program.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So,
So, what?
yeah, small businesses need practical, easy to understand concepts. I decided when I got started on the course that it still wasn't resonating by teaching the class every 6 weeks, and we weren't getting the buy-in in between the classes. So I started writing a blog every 2 weeks to the people in the management course. I did that for 2 years, and uh, they liked the blogs, they understood the blogs, but they didn't talk about the blogs like we wanted them to. So we actually forced the leaders to talk about the blogs with each other in management meetings. 20 minutes of a management meeting was set aside for discussing the latest blog. And once they began discussing them openly, they began holding each other accountable. They began referring to the blogs, and the whole concept really began to resonate with them. Well, 2 years in, I had just about run out of leadership material to write about, and so I decided I would back off and I would watch them run the company. And I was still there, but they would take the prime role in running the company day to day. They referred to the book over and over again as kind of a leadership guide. But
Mm,
as I saw them really take off as young leaders, and
yeah.
and I had time at that time because they were doing everything I used to do, uh, that I combined those blogs into a book and published it in book form. I don't think I ever would have sat down to write a book from scratch, but because I had 2 years worth of material already written, it was easy to go ahead and publish them in book form. So that's how we got here.
Wow. And let's just say if a business owner can only implement one piece of your training in the next 30 days, what should it be?
Connecting with employees. Learn how to connect with the people that you're trying to influence. If you only are saying good morning and talking to them about business, you're not putting yourself in a position to truly influence their behaviors. When you go 2 and 3 and 4 layers deep, um, you know where their hot buttons are.
Yeah.
Every employee, well, in my leadership style, I establish a different relationship with every single employee. And so when I talk to them, I'm talking about something that they share with me. And maybe it's their kids, maybe it's the way they grew up, maybe it's sports, maybe it's something that is of particular interest to them. But once you're connected to people on that level, you can ask them to do anything.
Wow. So knowing people personally, having that connection, let's just lack of a better word, that bro connection with everybody, is the way to lead in a better way.
Well, I think if you asked me for one thing that you could start doing today, that's the thing that I would pick.
Wow. That really means a lot because the corporate culture is like good morning, good evening, take your salary, do this work, etc., etc., and just go off. They don't need to worry about you. They don't need to worry about your family. They don't give a flying flying concern about your mental state. They just want their work and they'll give you salary. That is it.
Well, and it's further aggravated by the fact that in the big company, the HR department will tell you, um, don't ask those questions of employees. Now, you have to be careful when you ask employees questions. If they don't want to go into their personal life, you're not going into their personal life. But if they let you in, and sometimes it takes a while, if they let you in, that's when the real connection begins.
So it should not be something forced. It should be natural, like a friend.
And not only is it natural, but it's much more fun to work with people you really know than people you just have a business relationship with.
That's true. And you have built leaders so strong you could retire and leave management to them. That is very rare. What had to change in you as an owner to truly let go of the businesses that you gave your heart and blood and everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, it's hard work, frankly, to let go when you've been in charge for as many years as I have. But because I was able to be in the building and watch them take the business over gradually, it was not so much of a culture shock. I did it a little bit of a time at a time. I'm a good delegator, always have been. So I just kind of looked at it as something that I had delegated to them. And you still check in, you still look for little signs, you still give a little advice here and there. But I've been able basically to celebrate their success and to detach little by little from the day to day.
Yeah, it should not be a shock to you. It should come gradually.
Absolutely.
Yes. And for basically for men, they tie their worth, especially with being needed or actually working. How do you shift from being the hero to building heroes?
I decided very early in my career when I was working for someone else that the demands of working for someone else, the 18-hour days and the always being on call were not for me. And
Mm,
I decided that spending time with my family, watching my boys play sports and those kinds of things was going to guide my business life. And being in small business has allowed me to do that. So all along the way, I think I've been a little different than the typical business personality. Um, and because I have other interests in my life, business has always been important, but it's never been primary. That probably is at the root of the answer to that question.
that it is. And are there any ways that our listeners can connect with you?
Absolutely. I'm easily available. My email is rich@growingyourown.net. And the website for the book and the leadership course is growingyourown.net.
Perfect. We'll be adding these all the links in the description of our podcast. So our listeners, if you want, you can click that and join Rich Ashton for anything that you need. And Rich, if you have any last message that you want to leave us with.
I, if you have a small organization and you need help for leadership and you have become frustrated with the lack of information available for a small business,
Mm,
check out my book, Growing Your Own, and see if that isn't part of the answer. And if you don't have time to do the training, I'll be happy to come on site and do the training for you.
perfect. Rich, thank you so much for coming here and giving us so practical knowledge in, you know, such a faithful and such a blessed manner.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation. And I appreciate the questions that you asked.
And to our listeners, if this episode sparks something, share it with an owner who's exhausted from carrying everything or an employee who's ready to set up but doesn't have a map. So until next time we meet, stay focused and stay productive. Thank you so much.